We are here to discuss what local authorities and public authorities in more general need in terms of using innovative financing on a larger scale, especially when, for various reasons, they have reduced or limited access to subsidies. Miguel, over to you.
It's a bit of challenge to be the first one, but also it's an opportunity to share some reflections. And I would like to start precisely with a reflection about the way in which we are and the big challenge that we have on our hands, which is, cities transformation towards achieving the objective of climate neutrality by 2050, which is quite challenging. And as you know, in some cities which have committed to the city's mission by 2030, which is more challenging than, well, as objective. And this, it's really important that we consider and we think of, how the transition will be implemented and how the decarbonization of cities towards climate neutrality will come, and especially considering that the challenge is for cities, and this means for cities as a whole, and not only for public authorities. The challenge is not only for the municipality, but is for all the stakeholders and all the actors that are involved in the cities. As you know, well, the cities that have committed to this city's mission, they are working on delivering the Climate City Contract, which is basically integrated of three main components, which are the commitments, the action plans, and the investment plan. From the cities that have already been working on that and have already delivered these Climate City contracts, and from the first analysis, they have realized that when delivering the investment plan, actually the level of investment that will come from public money is very low compared to the required investment that is needed to come from the private sector. This means that we have to leverage and we have to ensure mapping all the benefits for all the stakeholders in order to ensure that all this private investment that is required for the transformation of the city is coming, and it's well catalyzed through the appropriate instruments in order to be implemented in the projects that we have to implement towards this objective of climate neutrality. And we need especially to leverage the potential of citizens for two objectives. First, to integrate the needs of all the citizens in order to ensure an inclusive transition. And then second, in order to bring closer the concept of climate neutrality to the citizens, because some citizens, they think that climate neutrality has nothing to do with them and is something that has only something to do with the municipality, and it's a political commitment, and the municipality will take care about this. And this is not the truth, because if we want to deliver climate neutral cities, we all have to be climate neutral citizens, and this is very, very important. So we have to foster and we have to leverage the potential of all the citizens and of all the stakeholders in the cities through mapping the benefits, the direct and the indirect co-benefits related to this objective of climate neutrality, in order to ensure that investments that are available are well implemented through these instruments. Because I guess there is a kind of agreement on the fact that the technologies that we need for the climate transition are there, the money is there, and now it's a matter of connecting this money with the technologies and with the projects that are required. And this will only come if we are able to foster and to leverage the demand coming from the citizens. So within this framework, we've been working in several projects, and I'm bringing today 3 examples of different sets of projects in which we have been implementing different sorts of combination of instruments in order to ensure the implementation of these actions. The first one is a project that we implemented here in the city of Valladolid, along with the municipality of Valladolid and some local stakeholders. The district in which we were working is made of 20 buildings, having these 400 dwellings that present a very high level of inefficiency in the buildings and also very low level of comfort conditions. And here, in order to ensure implementing all the investment required for this action, that was around 4 million euros, we had to define the way of combining different instruments that were basically the public funds coming from the European Commission, as the project was funded within Horizon 2020, and also a support from the municipality in terms of a specific grant, and then for the 30% that was needed to be investment by the owners, the implementation of 2 specific instruments that were an energy performance contract with the energy services company, providing the energy services to the district through the district heating network and the different systems that this dwellings have, plus the soft loan in order to ensure covering the part, the remaining part of the investment for the actions. It was very, very important to implement a really strong strategy for engagement, where we realized that the early engagement is really key and it's essential. And this is probably where we at the beginning failed, because we were just engaging with the community of owners representing the main community or the macro community, representing all the buildings, but not with the individual communities and the individual owners of all the dwellings. So at the beginning, the process was quite easy with the macro community, but then we realized that when engaging all the different owners, there were some needs and some issues that we hadn't considered in the project, and this made that we had to start a process of revising the project, of co-designing with them and co-creating the different solutions in a different manner in order to ensure the implementations. Co-creating about the solutions, but also co-creating about the scheme for the investment in order to negotiate the different conditions for the EPC and also for the soft loan. At the end, we were successful and we were able to implement the project with this scheme, and I think it's a very good example that then can be replicated with a reduced dependency on the subsidies, because the EPC and the soft loan are flexible enough in order to integrate different conditions and different aspects. The second example I'm bringing today was also implemented in the framework of REM Urban, but in this case in the city of Nottingham, which is a very interesting case. In this implementation, we renovated 7 homes, those that you can see here, plus other 3 homes with a different typology that are connected in a district, were 2 very specific components that made the project successful. The first one was this is social housing, so it's owned by the municipal housing company. And the model that we implemented is totally different from the previous. So the dependency on public funds, in this case as subsidies, is very low, so lower than 10%. And the rest is coming through a scheme of revolving funds through the housing revenue account of this housing company. So they invested on the renovation for these tenants, and they recover the investment through the scheme that they have for this housing revenue account through these revolving funds, where the savings go into this account as a kind of energy performance contract, but instead of having an ESCO, we have the municipal housing company. And the second element that we have here is very, very interesting, and it's also the other component for the success of this project, and it was the way in which this project was tendered and how it was contracted through a contract for performance, where instead of just tendering and setting a kind of orientative price and then deciding in terms of price, the price was fixed by the municipality, by the housing company in this case, and then the tender process was evaluated only in terms of quality and in terms of fulfillment of several conditions, among them a guaranteed energy performance. This provided flexibility to the construction companies, offering different solutions, because they could define different strategies for the technologies. So the technologies were not set as long as they keep the price within the fixed investment, and as long as they provide this guaranteed performance. This warranty was established in terms of the contract, so this means that if the performance is not fulfilled, they have penalties, and they have to pay to the housing company in form of these penalties. And this provides also the municipal housing company a guarantee of the fact that they will recover the investment, because the performance of these houses is guaranteed through this model. And but something that we learned is that there is flexibility to go for, and Silvia has already mentioned this, to go for innovative procurement processes, but this needs a big change of mindset in those procuring in order to evaluate following different criteria and not only price. And something that we have learned so far is that, there is no unique business model for positive energy districts, but there is a wide range of options that opens, because we can use those business models that have already been tested in previous projects, but also we can exploit some assets that we can monetize. The first one is flexibility, because these districts, to be positive, they have to be flexible, so we can monetize this flexibility, implementing, for example, advanced energy performance contracting, exploiting this flexibility. And then the second asset is that we have a surplus of energy that has to be managed, and that also can be monetized and included as part of the business model in order to identify how the investments can be recovered through the different mechanisms. And there is a third component beyond that, and it's the opportunity that having districts, those connected with these connections among the buildings, we can exploit the connection among the stakeholders and the citizens through, for example, energy communities.
Over to you, Sanela.
Thank you. As Silvia said, we had a crowd investing, but it was a micro loan for a 10 period. So what we wanted to do is to show that citizens can and are willing to invest in public projects, public energy projects. So we had a solar power plant on a development center and technological park, and on public library, so 2 of 30 kilowatts each. So to use local available resources and demonstrate that not only corporate investors will invest in such a project, that we can use citizens' finance for this. So the city didn't want to collect the money from citizens itself, so they needed to mediator. So the Green Energy Cooperative was a mediator between the city and the investors. And they didn't want to spread expand their membership, so they used microloans from citizens, so they are not a member of the cooperative. So every citizens in Croatia could invest in through microloan in this project, and they didn't need to be a member of the cooperative. So we had 93 citizens that invested in and collected 54,000 euros for these 2 power plants that were on public buildings owned by the city, and the users of the buildings and this electricity are also public entities in the ownership of the city. You can go to the next slide. So we involved lots of stakeholders because involving variety of stakeholders, local, national, and EU level was an indication that of the project's significance. When the citizens saw that Energy Cities is supporting this project, that Greenpeace is supporting this project, they were like, okay, that means something. This was the way to create also the trust on the citizens. So the main challenge was that we didn't have any legislation or alternative source of financing in public sector. So the mayor needed to be brave to go in the project where there is no regulation. And we still don't have any regulation for crowd investing. And also we didn't have any regulation in energy communities. That's the new ones. We have like 4 years now, the energy communities regulation, but it's very limited, and non-energy community is established in Croatia based on this regulation. So we didn't have any regulation, but we still did it because we find some hybrid model. It's also not an ESCO because ESCO is a very complicated, but this was a small scale project, so we didn't want to go with this complicated procedure on ESCO services. But in some way it is ESCO, but as I said, we did the hybrid. So I would say that main lessons learned was this community engagement. You need lots of stakeholders that will show the significance of the project. You need a very high involvement of the municipality because that is also showing the citizens that it's serious. And also you need some kind of mediator because sometimes citizens don't trust in the local authorities because it's very, like in Croatia, we are very high politically society. So everyone is seeing like what party you are or something. So when you have a mediator, it's more smoother to run a project like this. So after the this project, we established a local cooperative that is Click, and I'm a cooperative manager of our Križevci local cooperative. Citizens wanted, after this project, to show that we can drive the energy transition in our community, and we are now helping our citizens to invest in solar projects on their households. We are preparing them administration for the project development, for subsidies, national and also local, but we are also educating them about energy transition and using renewable technologies, and we are now trying to establish energy communities that are still very, very limited here, but we will find also some hybrid models to involve citizens in energy transition and some kind of energy communities that we can. So we also, for this purpose, we created an energy climate office as one-stop shop for renewable energy, and we will now develop this service on energy renovation, and everything that we are now doing in our community increase demand for solar equipment, resulting in new local businesses and new jobs in this field. So we have now like six companies that are working on solar equipment installation. We didn't have any 5 years ago. We have now 15 people working on this, and we didn't have any 5 years ago. So it was a project that triggered lots of things, not only citizens' investment in a solar power plant. So we have now lots of things that are connected to this project that are happening after that. So I would say that maybe the main lesson learned is that when you go with the one project, don't see it like a one project. See it like a chain reaction. Like we were very brave in this project because we did something that it wasn't regulated. So we make some kind of hybrid, but it made a chain reaction, and now we have lots of things that we can present and that are good in our community.
Moving on to Sandrine for our last inspirational bit before we start discussion.
What I can say on our own experience is that we decided not to wait from partnership, from subsidies, and we decided to act by small steps, because as Miguel and Scriveci, I think, told us, is that we have a wall of investment to plan, and it's complicated, but if we don't act because it is complicated, we still have lots of energy expenses. And as you could know, Albertville is in the Alps, so we have lots of expenses on energy, and we have to stop to spend so much money. And while we were studying our action plan on building renovation, we discovered the Stuttgart experience on Interacting Fund. So it is really simple to explain. It is a fund that you put at the disposal of the technical actions of your departments. You agree to transfer loans in internal departments. With these loans, you finance the measures that can induce energy savings. And these energy savings are calculated, and over a year, the next year, you say that your fund is alimented with this repayment. So it is simple, but you have to convince the representatives, the departments to go in this method. We decided to do so, to act quickly by our means, as I said, and we find it was a very good idea because it is a virtuous cycle of energy frugality, and it was what we wanted to get at the end. The mayor accepted to put on that fund about 100 euros at the beginning, and we also decided to boost that fund with other resources as our electricity tax. So now we have at our disposal about 700 euros per year to invest in our energy savings that were not already planned in our investment plan. It is the interest of that method. You invest more than what you have imagined before, because you affect resources to do so. So it's not a regulation tool, it's not a very complicated option, it's only a system that permits you to act and to decide to transfer money on that policy. So who was involved? Only the city with elected representatives, our head director, and our two departments, technical and finance. And as I explained you, the main challenges was to decide to act, even if we didn't put so much money at the beginning on that fund. To decide to act on the long term, because if you do that only for 1 year, it's with poor money, so it's not very interesting. But the interest is in the continuous process. And the main challenge is also to keep it simple, because if you begin to put on very complicated calculation operation to see if the result is well find at the end, for each measure, you spend all your money, all your resources by calculating if you were right at the beginning. And what we want to reach is to stop the inaction. So we decided to keep it simple. And for us, the main lessons learned is that small steps provide big results for us in the long term, because we do a lot of energy savings with that policy. We also discovered that it can provide a stronger partnership between our departments from technical and finance. And it is really important, because if you want to reach the climate neutrality, the climate transition goal, you have to put all the people in the same train and to go to the same way. And it's not always the same with finance and technical departments. And we also discovered that it was a very good topic to increase the recognition of our internal innovation capacity. It is a very strong force we have now to implement new things. And due to the boost we decided to put on the fund resources, we are now in capacity to invest in bigger projects. So we are now planning to act on building renovations, because as you can see on the pictures, we decided at the beginning to invest on small things because we didn't get much money, but now we have money, so we can act bigger.
And now let's move on to the conversations with our panelists.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation, and hello to everyone. Yeah, with this a lot of years of experience across the Europe, I can say that local level and local actors are really active, really very active. They are very brave. They always try to find something new and something they test. And they really try to, in this very fast developing energy and climate environment, I will say, they try to make the peace with it. But the most barriers that we see is that usually national governments, especially when we talk about the financing issue, so the national financing authorities or ministries, it depends on the organization, they really don't follow such a fast pace that would be needed, you know, to adapt to this. And so I think this is across the Europe pretty the same. Then we see in some governments, especially on regional level, that they can go a little bit faster, but they're very slow on the national level. So the centralized system are really very slow. But we have seen some of the good examples. So I think one of the best or the goodest point that could be taken also to national level is that when the national level, so ministries for energy or how they are organized, cooperate with the Ministry for Finance, and they give very clear guidelines, I will say, or signal to the local or regional level, then municipalities can do and implement the project very fast. So I think one of the most important issue is that they cooperate, and if they give clear guidelines where to put what, how to do it for the specific financing instruments, then the financing instruments are implemented very well. There are a lot of opportunities for the making new educate and informing and training for local authorities. So, and I think if there is the small push or small framework how to do it in this very complicated financial issue, then the local levels and local actors can really act fast because they do it.
Yeah, thank you, Sylvia. Thank you for having me also here. In terms of sharing experience with other cities, for us is very, very important in terms of increasing knowledge and learning from others. That's why, for instance, Valladolid belongs to several networks of cities, like the Eurocities and like the network of Michelin cities, and also networks of Spanish cities that work together to learn from each other, because we feel very close when we speak with other cities. We feel close and we feel that we have the same problems and the same issues. So when we speak with other, as I'm an officer, but I'm not a politician, I'm part of the technical team of the City Council, we see very similarities on what we face. And for us, it's very important to learn from other cities, as we are sharing here, learn from Arberville, learn from even from Valladolid, and sharing our experience, because we have either we have local regulations and national regulations, we are all over the EU regulations. So we have even a legal and common context for everyone.
Okay, thank you, Sylvia. And at the beginning, maybe I will mention for some reasons that in Poland there's low interest in complex form of investment financing. I completely agree with Vlada that the most important is national level and clear guidelines and strong support from national government. In Poland, it was easy to get subsidies from EU or from national level, so we used to use it. And also we don't have a lot of proven models and developed paths of conduct, how to operate with a more complex method. I would like to also mention a pure financial situation of our local governments. Because of changes in our tax system, we lose part of our incomes. But this is also the chance. This is also the reason that we have to develop a different kind of financing. And in Krakow, we use several methods of financing. First, low interest loans, this is easy and maybe not interesting, but also PPP formula for a large investment like construction of tram line or renovation of street lighting. We also try to use ESCO formula, and I can see two barriers for ESCO, because in our cities, buildings are the most important part of decarbonization. And these barriers are, at first, buildings are in poor technical condition, so they need a lot of additional cost for reshape them. So it's not possible to return debt from savings. And also I can see that our ESCO companies are especially interested in installation and control systems, control works, and they are not interested in building part of the work, building renovation, because it's more complicated, more risky, and also returns are much more longer. And under the mission, we developed a pilot project called NEST. And the aim is to develop solutions to enable the renovation of buildings on a massive scale, because we need massive scale, not particular buildings, but massive scale. And these solutions should be based on a few mechanisms, like first, entire buildings, quarters are subject of renovation, not individual buildings. So we look for the quarter. Also, all sectors are taken into account, including renovables, including electromobility, stormwater drainage, greenery, and also we have to look at social problems, because people are the most important, not buildings. And the third issue is that the process of renovation of buildings and also financing should be organized not by the building owner or manager, but by external entity. Because it's makes this easier, quicker, and also we can adopt innovation and this kind of innovative financial schemes. So we work on this pilot. We are very interested in collaboration with other cities. We also cooperate with CATIF in other projects. So it was a great example from Spain. I would like to use it in our cities.
Yes, thank you for this invitation and share our experience at the reality at local level. I think I can connect to especially what Vlasta said, that cooperation is necessary with financial legislative ministries and energy performance contracting that has been told about by Miguel. At local level in municipalities, realizing energy efficient homes is more important than ever. However, the deep energy renovations, as we are aiming for right now with time coming near, they are not equally accessible and affordable and attractive to all homeowners. So broad implementation of cost neutral and building related energy performance contracts would be a solution. Therefore, Amersfoort was brave and creative, like Sylvia just mentioned, and in cooperation with other local and regional public authorities, we have invested in the development of such an instrument, taking into account the interests of all stakeholders. This instrument was broadly supported by many high-level stakeholders from civic society in the Netherlands. And the design of the instrument is also in line with what we are aiming for in the Energy Efficiency Directive and the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. However, after having done a procurement for a service providing offering such energy performance contracts, a reality reveals a legal barrier concerning the scope of consumer credit regulation. And it appears it's not clear on the scope with regard to the innovative and integral nature of energy performance contracts. And as you can imagine, this hinders further progress, and our pilot is on the shelf now because legal uncertainty hinders investments by third parties. And also we can't ask a service provider or an ESCO to take the risk of a fine by the financial authority. That would be a bit weird to ask that as a municipality. So this is really sad. It's really tough, and like Vlasta said, cooperation between the different ministries is really important. However, European guidance could be of help for solving this at national level, because the legislation on consumer credits directly originates from a European directive, which is mandatory to be transposed. So I really hope that that from a European level there could be a guidance on how to implement this credit legislation, taking into account the integral nature of energy performance contract we are all working on, and as we see the benefits. I think we could draft some clarity on what should be within the scope of the credit regulation and what could be out of scope of the credit regulation, because we safeguard the interests of the homeowners by demanding certain criteria in the energy performance contracting. But this is just to illustrate a hurdle reality on local level when you really start implementing ambitions and IDs.
What we are going to do in our next project is kind of handbook for Polish cities to make the transition easier, to show the net zero consortium transition map. We are also going to prepare exemplary solutions for building quarters. We are also working with our national developing agency on the special model to simulate energy system or all energy systems in the city. So we would like to be sure that quarters are well planned in accordance with the whole city. And also the main goal is to prepare recommendations for incentives and support system for our government. So at 12 we have a meeting with ministries, Polish ministries on this topic. So I'm sorry I have to leave for a few moments. But what we are doing in Mission is very important for other cities. Many cities ask how they can join to the mission, or how can get fruits from our work. So establishing maybe not establishing, developing a network of cities interested in a mission, in a quick climate transition is also a very important part of our work.
I think that the big framework we're in is the EU Green Deal, setting the ambition for becoming climate neutral by 2050. In fact, making Europe the first climate neutral continent. So that's quite a bit of an ambition. Underneath, and even possibly more ambitious, is the Fit for 55 package, which aims to achieve quite a couple of targets by 2030 with a complete legislative package. I will not go into detail with that, but the main issue here is that all of these legislative frameworks will at some point also, if you want, trickle down to cities. So cities will be facing these frameworks and will need to tackle them somehow, because also when it comes to the Green Deal, we will not be successful implementing it when the biggest share of implementation is happening locally. Speaking of which, 75% of people live in cities. I don't know whether it has already been mentioned. Out of that population, roughly, the urban population, roughly 70% live in cities below 100,000 inhabitants. Now, these cities typically are cities which do not have the capacity or the knowledge or the staff or the means, be it budgetary or elsewhere, to take part in European programs very often. So it's fair to say that a big share of cities' interventions has to be covered by private financing, which is a bit the core of today's discussion, I understand. In this context, I would like to introduce to a couple of initiatives we have in DG ENER, but then I see also, of course, we have CINEA, we have the colleague from Regio, and there will be some complementation, I guess. We have on our end the Covenant of Mayors, which is sort of the biggest initiative of its kind worldwide, with roughly 11,000 cities being registered or signed up to it. We have the Smart Cities Marketplace, which brings together all sorts of urban projects with private financing, and as part of the process provides really with hands-on knowledge, guidance, examples from projects. That's actually where I know Miguel from this sort of context. We met a lot, quite frequently also, and so what we try to achieve here is actually with this Lighthouse program under Horizon 2020, some of which are still running of these projects, to create, if you want, a large collection of demonstrators across Europe, which can be replicated, which is very much at the heart of the marketplace, really fostering the replication, mainly with private financing, but also not denying the blending. I think that possibly the other colleagues will have to say something on that specific part. Yeah, and then last but not least, just one figure I want to throw in. The marketplace, since it's started its matchmaking operations in 2018, has matched roughly 130 projects with investments at a total of a bit more than 615 million euros since 2018.
Thank you, Silvia, and good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for having me here. So I'm Cristina Mestre Martinez, and I work at CINEA. CINEA is the Climate, Infrastructure and Environment Executive Agency of the European Commission, and we have the mission or the mandate, if you like, from the Commission to implement funding programs to accelerate the transition towards achieving the objectives of the EU Green Deal that Georg was mentioning just a minute ago. But that's a kind of ultimate goal. And before we get to the ultimate goal, there is a number of different targets and milestones to be achieved that are instrumentalized, or if you like, laid out by different European policies. So in order to achieve those, indeed, CINEA has a number of funding or implements a number of funding programs. Some of them have been mentioned already. For instance, research programs such as the Horizon Europe program, other big infrastructure funding programs such as Connecting Europe Facility. And I particularly work in the LIFE program, which maybe some of you are familiar with. It's been on for like more than 30 years, traditionally funding work on nature conservation, biodiversity, etc. And since 2021, implementing as well the latest addition, if you like, to the LIFE family, which is the LIFE Clean Energy Transition Subprogram. This LIFE Clean Energy Transition Subprogram builds up or kind of continues the work of the predecessor program, which is H2020 Energy Efficiency, that has been mentioned as well this morning, and I know many of you are probably quite familiar with this. And the LIFE Clean Energy Transition indeed continues this program in this new post-2020, if you like, framework. So indeed, this program focuses on the achievement of the clean energy transition with a focus on non-technological aspects. So indeed, this in practice means facilitation and improvement of policies at local, regional, national level, breaking market barriers, empowering citizens, and contribution or support to achieve investments in clean energy transition, which I think indeed this is what most of you are interested in the context of this discussion. So indeed, maybe I can mention a couple of of characteristics of our calls for proposals. That's, again, I'm sure many of you are familiar with. We have not typically yearly calls in which we open a number of topics that are indeed addressed at these non-technological aspects of the clean energy transition in different areas of intervention. So as I said a minute ago, for instance, breaking market barriers, attracting private investments, planning for local and regional authorities. And we have a call open until tomorrow, actually. So I hope if you are working on it, that you are mostly done with it. But we are already busy working on the preparation of the next call that responds very closely or aims at supporting our colleagues in Vienna, such as Georg here, to instrumentalize the implementation of the policies agreed at EU level. But discussions like today actually help us a lot as a sort of consultation phase for us to know what's actually needed on the ground. Maybe just a few interesting topics that we typically have in our call for proposals. So maybe starting from the topic I work mostly on, which is the capacity building for local and regional authorities to plan and implement the clean energy transition, under which, I know Prospect Plus is H2020, but it's this typical nature of these projects that we fund. So indeed is to support local and regional authorities to move on towards the transition, because as Georg was saying, indeed, everything that is agreed at EU level will eventually trickle down to the local level, and it's essential to have them, to have the local authorities involved. And also, as he mentioned, local and regional authorities in this case as well do not always have the capacity to engage in European funding proposals, and that's why it's actually quite vital to have projects like Prospect Plus that actually aim at supporting them. So that's then there are other topics that are more specific, for instance, for the development of one-stop shops, for attracting private finance, and also PDA, our project development assistance, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, which really aims at putting ideas into motion and actually achieve the eventual investments needed to put this clean energy transition ideas into motion. So for these projects, the support that we provide is, for instance, to develop a business case, to work out the financial engineering that is needed, to support in the bundling of projects, to support in the funding the investment pipeline, and eventually the projects need to actually demonstrate that the investments have been done actually and realized via a tender, via a contract. But we need to see that actually the support provided has reached the investment desired. Maybe just quickly before I conclude, because I don't want to take much time, there is, besides our call for proposals, there is also a number of initiatives that are also quite relevant in this context. the EU City Facility. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the EU City Facility, which provides lump sums and also technical support for the development of investment concepts for municipalities. There is Manage Energy as well. It was mentioned in the chat. There is a webinar next week that can be also quite relevant, and they also organize a series of masterclasses for the support and the capacity building indeed for the development of specific measures, including energy transition. And then other than that, maybe soft support, if you like, when it comes to peer learning or synergy creation and networking. Alicia was mentioning earlier, and I humbly take the hint that about events that actually are helpful for this element, for the networking element, and for connecting the different municipalities, not only the political staff, but even more so the technical staff that needs to be connected. So, for instance, I can think of the Covenant of Mayors Investment Forum, Energy Efficiency Marketplace that took place a couple of weeks ago in Brussels. That indeed, I say I take the hints humbly, because our goal is very much that, to connect the actors and to make sure that you talk to each other. And for instance, the EU Sustainable Energy Week, which is happening every year, and now we have the applications open for policy sessions in case any of you are interested. This is happening in June, I think, yeah. And others, for instance, the contractors meetings, in which we bring together the different projects that we fund to actually, again, for you to talk to each other and connect.
Thank you. And I'm just going to share 3 slides with you, because I think that they sort of speak to the questions. So I guess the main topic I wanted to sort of look at is what is bankable, because that's certainly the discussion that is missing a lot in terms of city knowledge or projects. You know, and through the Net Zero City program, we have a lot of projects that have come up, but just because they're good projects doesn't mean that investors are necessarily ready to put money to work. So, you know, what does bankability mean, and when is it bankable? Projects have to be financially viable and do have to generate a return for investors. Even people who are willing to take lower returns than normal because of impact or sustainability mandates will still want to know that projects are financially viable, and as a result, each project will have to have done risk-reward scenarios and financial modeling behind it. Risk and scenario analysis also obviously very important when thinking about whether a project is bankable, and certainly you need to think about enforceable contracts and clear objectives for how they're going to be used. And so I guess most important of that is sort of financial viability. So a sort of checklist for what makes a project financially viable. Cash flows, what are the cash flows coming in and out? Costs, what are the costs of the project? And therefore, what is the payback profile for the project? And therefore, thinking about whether it is an investor project or perhaps something that does need to be funded by grant money, because if there is no payback profile, you're not going to be able to repay the loans or indeed your investors. So certainly some stuff to think about there. And again, understanding the difference between debt and equity, you know, loans versus equity in a sort of project is another important concept to get behind. And certainly we're doing a lot of workshops with cities across the Net Zero City platform to ensure that these concepts become a little bit more commonplace when talking to cities and developing their projects. And I guess the other thing that the Net Zero City platform is hoping to bring in is a city financial specialist. So for the cities in the mission cities in the platform, there is going to be dedicated national resource of financial specialists who will be able to work with the cities just to help with that capacity problem, and in terms of actually growing the capacity and growing the knowledge base in the cities themselves. So we will be looking to put city financial specialists in to at a national level, so they'll cover multiple cities through the Mission City project, and certainly work with cities to actually understand how you can finance things. And I guess just the last program, because your question was obviously specific about investors, but who are the investors across the investment landscape, and what are they likely to look at? So we have a very nice diagram here just to help people understand who are investors. You know, financial institutions, it is industry, it is the public sector. You know, two that we are missing here, one is the crowdfunding model, because that is still very much work in progress, and we had a great example of that earlier on in the discussion. But I mean, we need to, and we are working very hard to make that more mainstream and figure out a way that can become a bit more mainstream. And then I guess the other one is your corporates, because again, you know, a lot of the work we're doing with cities at the moment is just to understand what corporates bring to the table. Most large corporates will have sustainability sustainability or impact budgets at a sort of group level. They'll also have marketing and sponsorship opportunities, which are great ways to get projects financed without having to worry about a return. And working with cities just to understand the stakeholder map across their sort of city is another crucial thing that we're trying to do in order to just bring broader financing into the space, because you know, it's not just about the various projects we've got going here. Again, if you think about adaptation versus mitigation, most of the funds at the moment are being spent on mitigation in terms of climate change, but adaptation is a crucial part of the discussion which we need to do more work on and indeed get more funds into, because at the moment adaptation is only taking 10% of the money that's coming into the wider impact space. Yeah, very happy, appreciate we're running out of time, but obviously happy to come back on at a later date and talk about some of these concepts in a bit more detail, or take questions or organized calls at a later date. So please do reach out if you want to know more. That's what we're here to do, and hopefully helping you all figure it out and figure out how we finance some of these projects.
I work in DG Regio, responsible for implementation of cohesion policy and specifically European regional development funds and cohesion funds. We work with member states managing authorities in shared management. So what it means is that the EU support is managed by the managing authorities in the member states, and for that, every 7 years we are negotiating programs where we agree with the member states how the money will be used over the 7 years, and we finalized negotiations last year for the programming period 21-27, and we are finishing the programming period 14-20. So the green activities, energy efficiency, climate neutral activities are very high on the agenda of the member states, and in the programs, managing authorities dedicate important resources for this purpose. And as I mentioned, we implement this EU support, ERDF and Cohesion Fund in shared management with member states. So here, and this support can be implemented through grants, but also financial instruments. And this is where our unit responsible for financial instruments come in. And we want indeed that there are more efficient ways of managing resources, and we think that with public support, that we can do more in terms of promoting efficient and sustainable way to support Green Deal and Green Agenda. So from a financial instruments perspective, so as already Alison mentioned, so we speak about loans, equity and guarantees. This is what is possible in our common provisions regulation if we use financial instruments. So financial instruments help to trigger investment on the ground for revenue generating and cost saving activities, and it also maximizes private investment in addition to the public support. So, and it is a tool to, because we speak about cohesion policy and its objectives, and it's also policy delivery tool. What is important is that, as I said, we want to do more with public funds, and our financial instruments have this potential to leverage private contributions, so that private investors are more interested to invest along public funds. So we give this de-risk aspect of for the private investors. And another good thing is, and I saw in one of the slides in France that you spoke about the revolving funds. So the money that was invested normally comes back to the region and it can be reinvested again. So there is more money available for implementing activities. And with the legal framework of the Common Provisions Regulations, we extended the possibilities where a grant component can be combined with financial instruments, so to address market failures and to encourage using financial instruments and to address investment areas like creating incentives to do more green activities, reducing carbon footprint, and also addressing social aspects and reaching more final recipients. So for this purpose, we in our unit, we created and worked on the two models. And one of them, the model for energy efficiency, financial instrument with a grant component, is specifically developed to address energy efficiency market failures. And this is a model addressed mostly for managing authorities, but at the same time, it's also interesting information for the financial intermediaries, banks, other financial institutions who would be interested in investing in these activities. And we think that with this model, we will encourage and make sure that all the market failures, as concerns energy efficiency investments, they incentivize project promoters to increase their interest in, let's say, deep renovation or even to carry out energy efficiency at all measures. Often, as a market failure is cited, long payback time or limited financial return. So here again, the grant component may incentivize financial intermediaries to come along, and this grant component may facilitate the interest of private sector. And if we speak about final recipients, for example, households in residential buildings, for example, we often come across this social issue and limited financial capacity. So our instruments can intervene there and to facilitate energy efficiency in buildings. So we are not asking final recipients to contribute, but there is money available for the investment to take place, and through this reduced bills, the households can repay the loans, but also in some instances it is possible to reduce the amount that households pay, or not with a grant component they don't pay it at all. So these are this is one of the model, and on similar principles we have built another model for New Europe to address New European Bauhaus. Maybe you have heard the initiative of our president of the Commission, and here it's more addressed to the urban development. And one of the values that New European Bauhaus promotes is sustainability. So it's also a possibility to address urban issues and green measures. And very briefly, because I talked too much, I just wanted to say some words about advisory that would be available for the managing authorities that are implementing our EU shared management funds. It's a FI Compass platform together between the Commission and EIB. European Investment Bank, and here this is the platform that helps to facilitate capacity in setting up and implementing shared management financial instruments. And also one of the aspects of this advisory is support package for the design and implementation of financial instruments, which is made available for the managing authority. So if there is an interest in your regions or at the national level to set up financial instruments, please let us know, and then we can see what kind of support we can provide. So this is member state specific support.